time for us to begin this morning. My name is Joe Waugh. I'm from Tipton Children's Home. Let's start with a prayer. Holy and righteous Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day that you have given to us to come together and study and learn more about you. And Father, we ask that everything we do be pleasing to you and our attitudes and our hearts, that we fully give them to you at this time. Ask that you forgive us, Father, when we fail you in any way, because we do know we come up short so often. In Jesus' name, amen. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself, then I'm going to tell you about the Tipton home and tell you what we're doing, where we came from and what we're doing. At any time that you've got a question, just stop me. Okay, just ask. If you don't, I won't come up for air. I just keep talking. It's just the way it goes. I'll tell you, 1993, I started preaching over at Chattanooga, Oklahoma. Brother-in-law got me into it, and I was having a hard time. I said, Teddy, I said, I'm in the adult auditorium class, and I ask them a question. They don't say anything. They just don't talk. I said, what do you do? He said, well, Joe, I ask them a question. He said, I don't say another word until they speak. I said, well, Teddy, how long you wait? He said, sometimes 3 to 4 minutes. He said, I don't care. I'm not saying another word. But I don't know y'all well enough, so it might get a little awkward, so I'll keep talking. Anyway, a little bit about myself. I was born in Lubbock, Texas, and at the age of 3, I moved to Tipton, Oklahoma, and that was 1966. Mom and Dad were house parents there. I was raised at Tipton Children's Home as a house parents child. I figured up on the way down here, I've either lived or worked at Tipton Home for 40 years. I was 3 when I got there in 1966. I know, that makes me 28. I'll just do the math for you. You don't have to do it. So I came in 1966, anyway, 3 years old. Mom and Dad were house parents there. Stayed there till my junior, senior year. Mom and Dad moved to the town of Tipton. So we're still involved. The elders of the church there are still our board of directors. Church and home, church, it's all mixed together. Unlike any other children's home that I'm aware of. I know other children's homes have, different things. The church is meant to be and is autonomous. In other words, we're separate and apart. Children's homes are the same way, maybe even more extreme. I don't know what goes on at Stephenville completely, at Foster's. I don't know at Manuelito or any of those, and that's okay. But I came there in 66 and then still involved, and I came back in 90 to 96 and worked as the cafeteria manager, and then came back in 03 after I'd spent about 7 years being a stockbroker, Merrill Lynch and Edward Jones, and came back in 03 as the assistant director, and then I never get this one right, but I think 11 years ago I became the executive director. When I was growing up at the home, the man in charge was the superintendent, but now I'm the executive director. I don't know why. And very rarely do I put executive, I just say director. I don't know why you have to make such a fancy title out of it. I'm just the guy that, I tell my staff this all the time. Somebody has to make the decision. That's just, somebody has to decide where you're going to eat, right? You have to make, that's kind of what has fallen on me. And so anyway, I've been doing that for that long, and I am married. I have a wife and 4 children. My daughter, it's really weird. I was born in Lubbock, Texas, age of 3, moved to Tipton, Oklahoma. Now she lives in Lubbock, Texas. Her husband's a vet, and he just graduated from A&M. Other son's at Faith Village. He is Faith Village Church of Christ, Wichita Falls, the youth minister there. Another son's in Colorado Springs. He works for Spartan Races. And another son's the youth minister in Tipton, but he goes out and speaks at different places. He's actually in Ryan, Oklahoma this morning preaching. He's kind of young and still, he just graduated a couple years ago, still doesn't know exactly what he wants to do. So that's my family in a nutshell. I have 6 I have 5. I don't know how you count it. There's 6 of us all together. I've got 2 brothers. I've got 3 brothers, 2 sisters. 2 of the brothers are preachers. One of them's an elder. One of them's married to an elder. So church is a long, deep history with me. That is me, and that's kind of my in a nutshell. And you can see why that if you ask me a question about Tipton Home, I'm probably going to know the answer. If you ask me about electricity or plumbing, I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a know-it-all. I just know that because that's all I know. I always get tickled that people say, they come up to me, you know, they're older than I am and say, well, you wouldn't remember. Oh, yeah, I do remember. I mean, you think about it, I do go back 57 years to the home. I can remember when the road around it was dirt and gravel. I can even remember the color of the gravel, which is weird because I don't remember where I parked my car. But I want to tell you about the Tipton home. Tipton home didn't start in Tipton. It started in Canadian, Texas in 1920. A couple by the name of brother and sister H.B. Beach went to the elders and said, hey, if you've got any orphans, we want to take them into our home. They did have a set of orphans at that time. It's hard for us to really get, it's because of what we are now, it's really hard for us to get this in our mind, okay? 1920, and what I'm going to say is, goes, what? 1920, a toothache would kill you. I had a great aunt that died of a toothache. There is no penicillin. There is no antibiotic. There is no MRI. You know, there's none of that stuff going on. So people died then of simple things that we take for granted now. Hey, here's a pill. Take this. You're okay. Don't even go see a doctor. You can call it in, do telehealth or whatever. And, you know, and back then they were dying. So we had orphans in America back then. And it started off as Tipton Orphans Home. They had 6 people moving their home. No, 5 people moving their home. 6 months later, they went to the elders and said, we've got to do something different. This isn't working. Because they had over 30 in their home at the time. So they moved into a Baptist reformatory. We've got a picture of it in our museum there. It's 3 stories high. And when they moved into it, it was condemned. Let that soak in. When they moved into it, it was condemned. How they got to do it, I don't know. If you watch, think of Pollyanna. I watched that movie, if you ever seen the old one with Haley Mills and Jane Wyman and whoever else. And so, you know, that's about that orphanage. I think that's kind of the way we were. So in 1922, the city leaders, Canadians, said, can't stay here anymore. So a guy by the name of Sweeney, who was the preacher and the superintendent of the home, he went out. Now, again, this is 1922. He went out and started to raise money to build the home in Canadian, Texas. Now, a gentleman, one of the elders there in Tipton, a guy by the name of Saul Tipton, coincidence on the name, no, nothing to do with the town, he said, I'll give you 80 acres of land to build the home here. Well, again, this is 1922-23, so that's a big, big deal. So they got the land, they started building, and in June of 1924, they went and got the kids with a car dealership that was in Tipton at that time, Star Cars by Durant Motors, which was only in America for 6 years. They went and got the kids and brought them to Tipton home, and we started in June of 1924. March of this year, a couple of months from now, we will celebrate our 100th year anniversary. They were gonna have me jump out of a cake, but it would have been a single layer cake, so they cooked it. That was awesome. Hopefully we're gonna have one of those cars there. They still have those cars. I can't tell any difference in that old car and Model A, T, B, or whatever myself, but we're gonna have that. We're gonna have a big lunch. We're gonna have 4 or 5 different speakers, children. I've got a board member who is now 90 years old, who remembers a lot of things from the past, sharp as a tack, and he's going to speak. We've got a guy that's 70-something years old. He'll speak and then bring it up into modern generations. The board member will be the only one speaking that is a non-resident. The rest will all been residents at the home. So they're going to speak. We're supposed to get fireworks, and you know, it's always Easter weekend, so it's March 30th. It's probably no telling what's gonna happen, probably be cold and everything else, but we're gonna try to, we think we owe it to the organization because it has stood the test of time. In that building, though, where they moved into in 1924, June of 24, that building, see, they had all the girls in one place, all the boys in another, lined up bunk bed after bunk bed. If you've ever seen the musical Annie, that's kind of what they were. And a woman took care of the girls, a man took care of the boys. You had the superintendent lived upstairs, and there was a school on the south side of the place. There was a cafeteria on the other. It was all housed inside this one building. That building is still there today. It's my office today. It's where I went and got the key to the car today. It's where that is still what we use today. Don't see it going away. We're this close to getting it registered on the Oklahoma Historical Society website. Unbelievable what you have to go and do to get that registered on there, but we're getting it. It's been a very, very long process. So that's kind of the way we started. That's not kind of, that is how we started at Tipton. The elders were again, the board of directors, they still are. I don't know of any other children's home or any other church organization that does that now. They might, I don't know. It works good for me. It doesn't work good for everybody. A lot of homes and a lot of different organizations have gone out and, we got 3 in Dallas, 2 in Plano, 2 in Edmond, 1 in Houston. And they're doing that because they need the influence there to get the monies and funds they need to keep going. That's fine. I get that too. Just saying that's what we do. We have our elders that take care of us, our board of directors. So that started there in 1923, rocked along there, just kind of under that way of doing things for about 22, 3 years. And then if you put it 22, 23 years later, it's 1945, 46, and World War II has just ended. Frederick Air Base gives us a couple of Quonset huts. They give us a couple of other things, and we started at that time with a cafeteria that was separate. We started at that time with the idea of having cottages. So now we've got a half-a-mile circle around our place that is our campus, and we've got cottages all the way around. We have 7 cottages. Now, let me explain. We have 4 full-time cottages, 8 kids to a cottage, 32 kids is our top. I want to say this, and I might say it 2 or 3 times because I think it's important. We do not take state or federal aid whatsoever. We do not take DHS kids. That's y'all CPS kids here in Texas. We don't do that. We don't deal with them. We are licensed by them, and what that means is every 5 years I gotta go get my fingers printed. Every 5 years, every other year I've got to have my first aid up to date. I've got to do continuing ed, and all the house parents do. You've got to have certain things in your cottages. You can opt out of dealing with them as far as dealing with their kids. You can't opt out with them dealing with the license. And when they come and check us, they check us 3 times a year. What they check is they go through all the rooms, all the cottages, make sure everything's up. And they go through our books, and make sure that all of our care plans and emergencies and all this stuff is done and everything. And so that's kind of our structure today. But let me go back to 45. So they started with this idea of having cottages and having a husband and a wife as house parents. And it was a struggle getting it going, but they did get it going. And then in the 50s, they got after it in I guess you could say in earnest. I don't use the word earnest very often, but they got after it then. And then what they did, they started building concrete and cinder block cottages. The one that I was raised in was that way. And that's kind of, even from the 50s to now, that was our structure then, is our structure now. The late 90s, they went in and tore some of those down and built nicer, newer ones, because all of those were built with a flat roof. And I don't care who you are. If you're in construction, you build something with a flat roof, shame on you. Just shame on you. Our administration building's a flat roof, and it is a constant leak, constant. It's a pain. We have a Southwest Rural Electric right next to us, right to the south of us, that has nothing to do with Tipton Home, but they all have flat roofs. And that gentleman was out just 2 weeks ago talking to me about, hey, what do you do about, anyway, long story. Sorry, that's my soapbox for the day. What'd you learn in church today? No flat roofs. Good for you. Okay. Um, So that they tore those down, built modern new ones, and so we're really in pretty good shape as far as our buildings are concerned right now. Obviously, as an administrator, there's always things I'd like to improve upon and do, but I can't complain about where we are right now. We're in good shape there. But really and truly, it's Tipton Children's Home. So I'm here talking about the children. Go back with me, if you would, to 1920, 1921 to right there. Notice what I'm saying. Back in those days, you had orphans, no mom, no dad. Since 1966, the time I got there until now, we've only had 5. We've helped over 5,000 children who have come through our doors since 1924, over 5,000. Now, I don't know how many since 66 on, but we've only had 5 orphans. Why is that? Because society today, who we are as a culture and as a people and this technology, people don't die. You don't have them dying of infection. We don't have World War II that claimed so many millions of lives. You don't have those things happening. People don't die. Now, I'm going to say something that might sound a little cold and a little harsh, but let me ask you a question. I think you know the answer to this. I'm dealing with a kid here that's 13 years old, 12 years old, whatever. Would it be better if he was an orphan, or would it be better if he's in the home because his mom and dad don't want him? Yeah, you got it. An orphan's 10 times easier to deal with. They know they've got to buy into what we're selling. This kid, they're coming to get me. They're coming to get me. One of our house parents there, his name's James Adbury. He's there. He came 2 years after I did as a child. As a child, he came. Now he's grown up. He's actually the mayor of Tipton, which I tell him he's a sucker for doing that. But anyway, that's another story for another day. Anyway, he tells me all the time and tells kids, he was a sophomore or junior, and his mom finally told him on the phone one day in the office, I am not coming to get you. He said, at that point, Joe, at that point was when I decided to change and to start doing what I was told to do. And to like I say, buy in. Well, yeah. Blood is thicker than water. You know, it's just really tough to make that change in those kids. So those are the children we have. Through no fault of their own, they're at Tipton Home. We don't take violent offenders. We don't take people that have on drugs, sex, drinking. There's another one, and if you're not up to date on all these psychological terms, that's fine. I mean, there's something called RAD, that's reactive attachment disorder. We don't take any child that's ever been diagnosed with that diagnosis. We are the lowest level of child care in the state of Oklahoma. Our kids can, let me just give it to you this way. If I have all my seniors, like junior, senior, sophomores, I'm at Six Flags, okay? I let them out. Meet me back here at 4 o'clock. They'll probably be back at 3:30 because they're tired. They're not going to run off. We attend the public schools there in Tipton. We do all those things in Tipton, and we like I say, we're the lowest level of care. We don't have bars on the windows. We don't have a fence, a barbed wire fence to keep our kids in. We do have barbed wire for our cows, but not for our kids. So that now, and I'm going to ramble on, I'm sure, but that child that I'm talking about, the child that needs all that extra help, there is a huge demand for that and need for that in the world today. I can't tell you the number of calls I get. 11-year-old boy on 9 psychotropic drugs. Mercy Hospital, Oklahoma City. I got a call the other day, 9-year-old boy. He is a danger to himself and to us. Can you take him? No, that's not what we do. There's a need for that. I'm not saying that. And God bless the people that do that. But we don't do that. And I'm not cut out to do that. I'm not that's therapeutic care, and there's a big need for that. But let me tell you a little bit about our kids and our staff. First of all, when a child is 0 to 6 years of age, you're a third of the way through raising them. 6 to 12, 2/3. 12 to 18, you're done. Okay? Average age of the kids coming to Tipton Home usually is about 13. Now, 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18. Where are you on the scale? You've got 3 or 4 years to undo some of the most formative years in a child's life. When a child is 0, and I think it's 0 to 1, 2, and 3, if they're not being held and loved, they're going to miss out on some of the connections they need in their brain. So that's very, very, very important. But you get this child in here, and then you've got to undo all of these things that he's been through to get him going again, to get him right, or her right. That's very, very, very hard to do. So we have kids through, like I say, no fault of their own, are always there. They're trying to do what's best, but some of them just don't know. Our main goal is always to lead them to Christ. We believe in Matthew 16:26 says, "What does it profit man if he gains the whole world and does what? Loses his own soul." Well, what's it profit us if we teach a kid to gain the whole world and they lose their soul? Not much. Not much. So let me just tell you about some of our kids over the years. Now it's gonna take a lot of different things, but we had at one time we had 4 brothers there, good kids. In April of the year, I'm going back in time. In April of that year, they went and saw their baby sister that was born in Altus, Oklahoma. In October of that year, they went to their mother's wedding. How that happens, but anyway, they went to her wedding. She married a man that was not the father to the baby born in April. Okay, that's who we deal with. It's real. We had that kids there on campus. We have all sorts of different situations. Have a couple of kids there at one time whose grandmother had sole custody of it because the courts thought that was the best thing to do for her. And once the grandmother died and passed away, they left and went back to living in the same environment that they took them out of. We don't deal with judges very often at all because, like I say, we don't do state kids. But when you do deal with those kids and do deal with those situations, you just think, why? Some things just don't add up. Just don't add up. 6 years ago, though, our lives kind of changed there at Tipton Home. In March of 2018, we got in touch with it. They got in touch with us. Let me go back. Let me take you back before 2018. Here's the typical child that we're going to get. My child is acting up. They're 6 years, 7, 8 years old. My child's acting up. We're going to take them to a doctor. They're going to put them on a psychotropic drug. You know, some kind of ADHD, drug. That's what they're on. Okay, hyperactive. Okay, that's what they put them on. My son's still acting up. He's still not doing right. He's still doing, well, you know, maybe he needs to go to a facility. Facility's a mental hospital. Okay, then when they get out, well, I still can't handle them. Tipton Home, can you? And that's the calls that we were getting all the time. And some we tried to help all of them. Some we could help, some we couldn't help. But in March of 2018, just out of pure coincidence or whatever, there was a man who called himself a Liberian missionary. And to make a long story short, we started getting, again, the same process. They're all put there by private placement. We started getting Liberian kids. Now, let me tell you the story behind that. In 1996, there's a civil war in Liberia, and President Clinton at the time granted them political asylum in our country, and they moved over here. In 96 is when a big wave of those people came over here. And all presidents since then have just signed off and I think given them political amnesty. Well, these kids have kids. I mean, these people have kids. And they send them to us because they can't raise them by themselves. Now, our children are all American citizens, because it's been second and sometimes even third generations of these Liberians. Our kids, you know, they come and we're trying to raise them, and we're trying to learn their culture and trying to make a difference in their lives. We know one thing: none of them are on any psychotropic drugs. None of them are on any kind of behavior problems. If they are, we just send them back. But we've had very few of those, and they're all eager to learn. But what we don't know is the culture behind that culture. I mean, I don't know it, and I'm learning it little by little. Let me give you an example. The woman is not thought of very highly. She's thought of as somebody that produces babies. That's it. Had a man and a woman, husband and wife, have 2 kids together. He goes to Houston for a job. When he comes back, he finds his wife is expecting a baby. He gets mad and leaves. She has the baby. He comes back. They have another child together. And it's just very, I don't know how else to say this without seeming crude, but very, very loose on the mother's end. But when you talk to them, they are extremely, very, very adamant, very, very strong in their beliefs of right and wrong. And I tell you this, when you talk to them about homosexuality, get ready. Because they still think it's a crime that's supposed to be killed from Liberia. Kill them, you know. And one of the things, one of the guys came and said, Joe, you have men marrying men. That ought not to be. I said, well, I know that, but I can't do anything about it. I mean, preach against it, I guess. But so we've got that going on. We've also had the issue with, I didn't know any about it. Their hair and their skin, so much different than ours, have to deal with that. But it has been a joy. And let me tell you why. Last year we graduated 4 kids. You say, well, that's what we're supposed to do. It'd been over 5 years since we'd graduated anybody at Tipton home. You know why? Because when a child turns 18, by law, they can come into my office and say, I'm leaving. And you have to say bye. We had them do that in March and in February of the year they're going to graduate. And I can't do a thing about it. Now, if they turn 18 and they stay there, all they got to do is sign a piece of paper, they're back in. We can keep them all the way up to 21 or 22 years of age. But if they come in and say that I'm going to leave, there's nothing you can do. And we hadn't had anybody get to the finish line. Last year we had 4. So hopefully we're doing something right. One of the things we did with those 4 kids, all 4 of them had a car. You know, our price range, and if y'all know of any good cars we can buy like this, you know, $3,500 to $5,000, 100,000 miles plus, usually a Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, or something like that, of that nature. I've got 2 of them driving Camrys. One of them wanted a little short bed pickup, and the other's got a Camry. I have 3 of them driving Camrys. So anyway, that's kind of what the kind of car we got. And you didn't get a new Lamborghini or a Porsche or anything like that. Of course, I didn't either. I had a 1979 Ford Courier pickup, no air conditioner. Standard. Anybody remember Standards? And it had a 255 air conditioner. Roll down 2 windows, go 55. That was my air conditioner. But they had that. They had a bank card. Now I know who I'm talking to here because of your age. I know you're going to say you need to reconcile your bank account. I don't have any of my own kids. Nobody reconciles bank account. Dad, why should you reconcile your bank account? I can go online. That's what I've got. Here's my debit card. It just came out. I can see that. They're not going to write a check that's outstanding. Why do you need to do that? I mean, it's all automated for this new generation. Now, for the home, obviously I have to reconcile the bank every month to come up with financials. But I'm just saying. Anyway, they all have a debit card that we can do. But I want to take you back to the other third thing that is such a powerful thing. And again, I know the audience I'm talking to this morning, so you need to, this is going to be tough. I had a 15-year-old girl come to me after she'd been home. And she said these words, Mr. Joe, I'm going home. Well, 15-year-old girl, of course, so great. Okay, what's his name? No, I don't have a boyfriend. Well, why are you going home? I know your home life. I know what it's like. You don't have a good home life. Why are you going home? She said one thing. She said, I get one of these. And that was the only reason she was going home. Folks, if you'll notice, if you're over 40, usually this isn't, you probably don't have yours with you, or it's on here. Most people's right here, right? If it's a child, it's here. because the difference is on a child, it's an appendage. It's just like a finger. It's part of them, okay? The other thing, notice this, if you're in an audience like this, you've got a phone, if it goes off, it's gonna be somebody over 40. It's not gonna be a kid. Kid's on silent, just like mine is. Gonna be on silent. You know why it doesn't have to ring? Because they're always looking at it. You don't have to have it ring. I know, you know. I'm going to be looking at it all the time. I know when it's going to go off. I know things. We have to be reminded, saying, oh, yeah, I got that phone or whatever. That's how big that is a part of their lives. So that being said, we can sit there and we can deny it. We can sit there, that technology, who needs that stuff? Or we can face reality and say, they're going to get a phone. What do you want to do? Do you want to help them, or do you want to just give them a phone? Because this dude right here, you know, I can make millions upon billions of dollars trading stock options, stocks, and anything I want to. Also, I can look at any pornography that's ever been created in the human race right here. I can also get in touch with the people who created it. I can buy drugs and get whatever I want with this thing right here. Also got me down here this morning because I didn't know where to turn, but, you know. But I'm just saying, you know, that's how powerful that is. So what we did, we gave them all a phone, and we had one phone called the dummy phone on my social service worker, the one that takes care of, she's the one in charge of all the children. She had it monitored. They could come on at 7. It went off at 10. You only got 4 hours a day on it. Only 4 hours a day. Let that soak in. You got 4 hours a day on it. You could not put any app on it without us giving the permission. You could not be on Instagram or Facebook because you weren't ready for that. And there was all kinds of variables. And they also had Live 360 on them. In other words, we know your speed. We know where you are. We know where they are anyway. Just need to know your speed. And it came out all right. Had a couple of times the phones were in our office for 30 days. Get it back after 30 days, learn how to use it right. But we monitored it real closely. Now, I want to tell you something else, and please, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. Anybody want to guess where they used the 4 hours a day at? Where their time was mostly used on their phone? What time of day? Anybody? Between 8 and 3 while they're at school. Yeah, we had one kid. He would come home. He'd start at 7 a.m. 3 o'clock, his 4 hours are up. Done. You're off phone. Why are you doing that? Well, I get my work done and you can be on my phone. Okay, whatever. You know, like I said, I'm not trying to badmouth school or anything. I'm just saying that's the way it was then. It still is, I guess. But we have to monitor that, and we did monitor that. And like I say, our kids, they go to the public school there in Tipton. Tipton's a town of 750 people. We play 8-man football. We have won 8 state championships. Just don't brag or anything. Just won 2 in a row this past year. Anyway, we have to win it in something because OU's never going to win again. Anyway, neither are the Cowboys. All right, I'll quit. Man, I went to a basketball game just Thursday night, and the guy at the concession stand said, "Do you like turnovers?" I said, "Well, yeah, I do." He said, "Good, we're having a Cowboy special." I said, "It just doesn't end. It just never ends." But we do, our kids attend the school there in Tipton, and they're involved in football, basketball, volleyball, softball, track, all the things that Tipton has to offer. Nobody specializes in any one sport. You can't, because we need everybody to compete. We only have 750 in the town, and I have about 150, 125 in school. That's it. So we do that. FFA is huge in Tipton. It's huge. We have pigs and dairy cattle that our kids show, and they're fixing it really heavy into this showing right now this time of year, and and that is something they do and work really long, hard hours with their animals. That ends in March. They're involved in that. You know, in our school, and like I say, it's a small town that such a small town that, and you know, I might not know what the dog's name is, but I know who the dog belongs to. That's how little it is. And when you get down to school, the high school principal, who is also the high school football coach, who is also my nephew, him and his wife work there. His dad, who is my brother-in-law, is the high school girls basketball coach. He's also one of the elders there, and he's on the board of directors. His wife, my sister, is a middle school teacher. Another middle school teacher was raised at Tipton Children's Home. So if you think you're going to get away with something, you might, but I doubt it. You know, it's just not, the cards are stacked against the poor kids. But it is a very small community. We pull together, and we do pull together. It's a unique community in the sense that there's been 100 years that we've been there, and we've had teachers that have come from other schools in and tell us, hey, you know that this kid here wouldn't make it over at that school. Well, why not? He wouldn't be accepted. Tipton's had such an influx of in and out and different people. Everybody's accepted. They really are. I mean, it's just the way it is. But we really and truly, that's kind of who we are in a nutshell. Like I said, 8 kids to a cottage fort. Used to have a lot more kids than that when I was growing up. Well, we housed them, but we didn't heal them. I had 23 in my cottage, guys. I had mom, dad, there was counting mom and dad, and then there was 5 of us, so that's 7, so 16 kids in my cottage. Now, I don't care who you are, I don't care how good you are, I don't care what you are. You cannot give 16 kids the proper amount of care and nourishment, spiritually and mentally. Now, you might could if they were your own personal 16 kids and you stair-step them down. You know, when one's 20, when you have your last one or something of that nature. But when you have, you know, I've got 6 sixth graders and 5 fourth graders. Mom, when she got there, we had 8 kids that were not in grade school yet. 8 kids that she had taken a red wagon, and I was one of them. You remember those red wagons? 3 on each side, one. There's 8 of us. She'd pull us up to the office, and she'd go in the office up there, and she'd get us all a Dixie cup. Remember the little bitty Dixie cup? Everybody got a Dixie cup. And she'd go over to the vending machine and get Dr. Pepper, 12-ounce Dr. Pepper, split it between the 8 of us. Well, we thought we were living good then. Now we got to have, what, 44 ounce for one person. Got to have a barrel. And back then I thought, man, we've come from a Dixie cup to a barrel. But that's, you know, that's kind of who we were then. And like I say, we housed a lot of kids then. We didn't heal them. We try our best to heal them today. Now, let me say this. I'm the administrator. I've got all the history of Tipton Home, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's going to come back and see me. Nobody's going to come back and see me. Who are they going to see? House parents. They're the ones that raised them. If we're going to make any difference in this child's life, you have to remember what it says in Deuteronomy or Leviticus. It's Deuteronomy 6:6-7 right in there. He says, lay these laws upon their hearts. When you rise in the morning, when you walk along the road, let me put that in modern terms. You lay these laws upon their hearts when you playing basketball, when you're driving them to school, when you're working in the garden, when you're feeding the pigs. That's when you lay these laws upon their hearts. It's in that day-to-day interaction. If I bring a child in and I'm talking to them across the desk, I don't get any response. If I'm out with them, helping them to walk their pigs, or if I'm out with them playing basketball, if I'm out doing stuff, I get a lot more. It's human nature. Nobody's going to talk across the desk to an adult. They will then, though. They'll loosen up and say things. That's why it's, in those times like that, it's that house parent that's making a huge difference. So, if there's one thing you can do, help Tipton Home. I guess y'all thought it was tuna back there to help Tipton Home. But we do like tuna. But pray for our children. Now, James 5:16 says, confess your sins one to another so that you may be healed. But here's the most important part. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man, King James, availeth much. Other version says it's powerful and effective. Pray for our children. Because, guys, I know where my kids come from, and they have their struggles. These kids come from mixed up, crazy backgrounds you wouldn't believe. I took 3 of them home for Christmas to Knoxville, Tennessee, and had a good long drive, 15-hour, 14-hour drive over there. And we talked, and I said, Jameer, I said, hey, man, tell me about your mom. Well, this. So, well, what about your dad? What's he do? I don't know. When'd you see him last? I don't know. And this kid's 13. And that's what Jameer, where does he live? I think he lives in Maine. I'm not sure. And that's what we deal with. And the other thing too, the mom he's going back to might be the mom to the two other ones in the car, but it might not be his real mom, but she takes him anyway because it all fell apart. And every kid there is that way. You know, and please don't get this wrong, but I got a call just out of the blue from a guy way over in North Carolina these past couple of weeks asking me what my thoughts were on marriage and divorce and that whole situation. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm trying to get the kids just to Christ. Every one of my kids their parents would be in a situation that this gentleman that was calling me would call unscriptural. Oh, that's good. Hey, Jameer, guess what? Your mom and dad are going to hell. Won't you come be a part of the church? Is that the way you want to start relating? No. Years later, we can talk about that when you mature, when you grow. But now, no, we need to get the basics. And so pray for our children, but pray for our house parents too, because they have a tough job. You think of it on that scale of 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18. When they're 13 years old, where are they on that scale? And you've got to undo them. You know, there's 6 in my family, okay? There's 6. I got 2 brothers that are twins. They're older than me. I got a younger brother and 2 sisters, okay? Out of those 6, there's a bunch of differences. And I'm the only one that turned out right. They're a bunch of weirdos. You know? But you see how they're differences. We all came from the same stock. They didn't. You know what they came from. They can't tell you what they came from. And then we're supposed to make the best of that. And we do. Our children come, by the way, I mentioned Knoxville. Our children come from Fargo, North Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Des Moines, Iowa. Christmas and other breaks, we take them to St. Joseph, Missouri, drop them off there, and they meet there, and they go to, back on breaks. That's kind of it in a very limited nutshell. There's a lot of stories I could tell you probably, fun stories and not so fun stories. The home back in the early 60s, I'm not going to shy away from this. The home back in the early 60s went through a time where we had some pretty bad characters there as far as administration and all that were abusive, and not proud of it, but it is what happened. But we've got a lot of stories there. There's a lot of people that have come through there that have done good and gone on to done good. There's people that have gone through there, we don't know what happened to them. And we hear years later that they had a very productive life. There was a guy that was a year older than me, and he, 2 years, never heard anything about him, not on Facebook, nothing, just nothing. Well, he comes back years later. He's retired Army. He went in all 20 or 22 years, Master Sergeant, whatever, highest enlisted person ever. And I think, wow, maybe something did click for him. Now, our generation, what we're teaching now, we'll have to see what comes of it. Anyway, I've got a minute and a half left. What questions do y'all have for me? Surely you've got a question for me. See, I just left a minute to stare you down.
Your support holding up, like funds needed coming in?
Our funds are we can pay all our bills. We're doing good. We're doing good right now. We've been blessed with different assets. I can see a time when the church isn't as supportive as it once was. And, let me give you an example. Church in somewhere, say Godibo, Oklahoma. Okay, say it sent us $100 a month. It shuts down, but somebody there leaves us a house, and that can take the place of that $50. But the church, unfortunately, the church is not. I mean, we get letters all the time of we've got to cut your support off because either we're quitting, we're going away, or we just can't do it anymore. But right now we're okay. Okay. Yeah. Past my time. Somebody said 10:15. Y'all make sure that y'all got that big clock back there, don't you, for the speaker? One time I spoke, I got one more thing to tell you. One time I spoke, and a guy said I spoke too long, and I said, well, there's no clock on the wall. He said, no excuse, there's a calendar. So I try to keep it underneath the calendar. Do I go from up here for the church service?
Richard will set you all up. Yeah, it's back there.